This is a direct sequel to Book 54. Nancy also solved mysteries at Emerson College in Books 8 and 42. That makes 4 books with mysteries at Ned's college. They might as well rename it Crime College.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
Nancy and Bess are at Emerson for homecoming week. Football player Jerry McEntee immediately resumes his role as Bess's love interest. It must be nice for her to have hot guys at her beck and call wherever she goes. They meet the book's most minor suspect, Susanna Carlson, a disgruntled ex-student who hates the college. She's only here because her sister Tamara is in the running for homecoming queen. Our victim is Randy Simpson, the team's quarterback. He broke up with cheerleader Danielle Graves. She is super furious with him. She publicly threatens to make him pay. At the rally that night, Randy's platform catches on fire, and Nancy's forced to save his life. Was it attempted murder or an accident? Nah, this is a Nancy Drew Files book. There are no accidents! Someone totally doused the platform with kerosene ahead of time. The team's other quarterback is Josh Mitchell. Josh is actually the lead quarterback, but he was benched due to poor grades. Josh is the coach's son, and nobody thinks it's weird that the coach picked his own son as the star player. That sounds like blatant favoritism to me. Randy asks to see Nancy in private. He's been receiving threats, telling him to throw the game. He suspects Zip Williams, the rival team's quarterback. Zip is dating Tamara. Nancy and Ned have a nice romantic moment at the dance floor. That should make up for her getting flirty with Victor in the last book. Danielle is mad that Randy didn't die in the fire. In the workout room, Randy says Danielle's totally innocent, investigating her as a dead end. Randy almost meets a dead end himself when his workout equipment is sabotaged. Speaking of which, if I'm ever killed while bench pressing weights, please add more weights to the bar before calling the police. That way everyone will think I was in terrific shape when I died. Nancy goes to Coach Mitchell. She overhears him say, "It's all on Sunday's game, 6-10. They tell Coach about the case, and although he's worried about the threats, he thinks it's a big joke to have a lady detective investigate. What a jerk. Zip and Tamara are mad when they don't become homecoming king and queen. I don't know why, there's a 0% chance that Emerson would pick the rival school's quarterback as their homecoming king. Zip is arrogant, and he brags he's gonna win the big game on Saturday. He is playing against the backup quarterback who's a rookie, so it's a pretty safe bet. Coach tries to get his son back on the team, but Dean Jarvis refuses. Randy collapses during practice when his water bottle is drugged. Coach suspects Randy is a drug abuser, which Nancy refuses to believe. Nancy searches the locker room. Danielle apologizes for the harsh things she said, and there's more romance when Nancy goes to a frat party with Ned. The culprit sends Nancy a threatening message using a typewriter with a broken letter E. Nancy breaks into Danielle's room to check her typewriter, while Bess borrows Susanna's typewriter to do a love note. "Dearest Jerry, my little snickerdoodle, will you ever know how I love you so?" Yeah, that's Bess's actual love note. How does she have so many boyfriends? Josh fights the shadowy culprit on the 3rd floor of the library. He almost gets pushed out the window. Nancy rushes to the library. She sees the elevator is in the basement. Nancy searches every floor of the library except the basement. Why didn't she search the basement? She knows someone was down there recently. Ugh. Nancy becomes suspicious of Josh because he says he was studying, but he didn't have any books or writing utensils. Studying indeed. Zip is hauled in for questioning, Danielle gets a new boyfriend, and the culprit sabotages the homecoming float that Randy is on. He's okay, though. As a football player, he knows how to take a tumble. Also, he can't be seriously injured so close to the end of the book. That would ruin everything. Somebody leaves a note for Nancy asking to meet her in private. She thinks the note's from Ned, but surprise, it's the culprit! The culprit is hiding inside a mascot costume, and he tries to stab her. Nancy knows the culprit must be male after this, because he has large feet. That's not solid proof, Nancy. The culprit wore football sneakers, so the culprit is probably on the team. Nancy breaks into the locker room during game time. In the coach's area, she finds a lot of incriminating evidence, including a gambling chart. Coach is the culprit! He's been betting on his own team. Now that his son Josh isn't playing anymore, Coach hasn't been able to fix games, and he's gotten desperate. The last act of sabotage is blowing up the locker room. Nancy and Bess confront Josh. He confesses to everything, and they convince him to deactivate the bomb. Coach is arrested, and it's a happy ending, even though the team loses the game by 3 points. The end. Post-book follow-up. This is a good book with lots of action and romance. I liked it a lot better than the previous book. Even though they're fairly similar school mysteries, the books could swap one to two suspects, and you wouldn't know the difference. A problem with this book is the culprit. As I said, Book 8 also takes place at this college. That book also has a culprit whose crime is gambling on his own team. How does this college have 2 gambling coaches? They need to reevaluate their hiring practices. It's unrealistic how nobody mentions the previous coach culprit who ran the exact same scheme. It's unrealistic that Nancy needs to relearn what point spreads are. She should have remembered that information, then used it to identify the coach as a gambler at the start of the book based on his phone call. Some readers did solve the mystery at the start. About half the online reviews I saw complained the culprit's too obvious. It's doubly obvious if you read Book 8, which is incredibly similar. Overall, I like the book. It's a good football mystery. It manages to avoid the usual Ned is mad at Nancy for suspecting his friends drama. That's one way it's much better than Book 8. I also like the continuity with Book 54. I would recommend changing this book so the culprit is less obvious, but I think it's fine as it is. I give Nancy Drew Files number 63 Mixed Signals an 8 out of 10.